What's up guys, this is Crouching Walrus here. I am on the dev server looking at one of the many new features that 1.37 will be bringing us, the new progression system. I am currently looking at the American tech tree, and just a heads up, I don't know what to think about this new progression system yet, so don't ask for my opinion on it. I'm gonna wait till the new patch actually rolls out and then pass judgment on it, because I actually haven't played any games on the dev server yet. And with that out of the way, let's talk about this a little bit. One thing that's obviously changed is the rankings are now 1 through 5 instead of 0 through 20, and the P-38 is now below the P-47 in tier. The US has a new jet, the F-9F2, and I think it's pretty much the same as the F-9F5, except the F-9F2 has the Marine skin instead of the Navy skin. If there's actually any real difference, you guys can let me know in the comments. And I think that's pretty much it with the US tree. With the German tree, we have a new Focke-Wulf. We have two new Focke-Wulfs, the Focke-Wulf 190A8, and we also have the Focke-Wulf 190D9, which I'm going to show you in a second. See, there it is in all of its glory. Well, actually, I don't have it unlocked, so I can't test fly it for you later, but I will test fly the Russian premium one, which has the same upgrades, so it should be the same plane, essentially. Oh, and this is post-commentary because for some reason my DX story decided not to record my voice while I was doing this. And it's just as well, though, because I missed a few things. The Germans also get two new Bf-109Fs, the F1 and the F2. And we also have a new HS-129. Oh, happy day, another duck. Oh, but this is no ordinary duck. This is the Quacker with the 75mm cannon. Yes, you heard me right, 75mm. That is a big gun. And now onto the Russian tree. We got quite a number of new planes in Russia as usual. And first off, we have a few new Yakovlevs, and the first one is the Yak-9U. The second one is the Yak-9U UT, which is the same plane with different guns, basically. And we also have a new Lavochkin. We have the LA-9. And another new plane we have. Is that it? No, we have a new plane called the I-185 and a new MiG-315. This one is... oh, this is the one with the gun pods, the 50 caliber gun pods. It has 5 guns instead of the usual 3 mounted in the nose of the other MiG-9. Excuse me, MiG-3. And I'm just going to give you a little quick peek at those gun pods. You can see them there under the wings, and it's at the same tier as the other MiG-3, so that should be a pretty good bump in firepower if that's what turned you off about the normal MiG-3. Alright, so next up we have our Royal Air Force. See, what all new do we have at low tiers? Doesn't look like much. We don't have any new low tier planes on the British. Of course, we have our new Tempest. I'll get to that later. And looks like the Meteor F3s all the way through the F8 and the Vampire are all in the tier 5 bracket. So even those hamster powered F3s are now at tier 5. And here we have our new Tempest Mark 5 with the 47mm cannons and the Tempest 2. Ain't she a beaut. Alright, next up we have our Japanese. And we have a few new Zeros. We have the A6M5 Mod 22 KO. Not really sure what the difference between the two are supposed to be. Yeah, I can't really see a difference, and I don't off the top of my head know what the difference was in real life either. We also have the A6M5 Utsu. And what else do we have? Oh, how can I forget? The Ki-84s, the most anticipated Japanese fighters. And we also have the B-7A2. Looks like a Japanese BTD, pretty sweet. And we also have this thing. Oh, I think I know what this is. Basically, this is a Japanese Heinkel 112. So, it's pretty standard. And I'm not sure there is anything else. I think that's it with the Japanese. Alright, moving on to the new planes and the new flight models. First up we have the Focke-Wulf 190A8. This is the dedicated fighter variant of the A series Focke-Wulf 190s. And it's a pretty sweet looking plane in game. A cool cockpit. But one thing that did turn me off about this plane is that I believe it has a placeholder flight model for now. The Focke-Wulf 190A8 has the same exact performance as the Focke-Wulf 190A5. I tested its max speed at sea level, its climb to 10,000 meters, its turn rate, and its dive. It's all exactly the same as the Focke-Wulf 190A5. So I apologize if you guys were looking forward to flying this thing. I believe you're going to have to wait a bit longer for it to actually receive its real flight model. Unless they open up the dev server again or patch it again, because right now it's not the correct flight model. Alright, here we have the B7A2. Told you it looks like a Japanese BTD destroyer. And it's got a pretty cool cockpit. Got pretty much similar visibility to the Zero for all you full reel battle players. And it doesn't really accelerate very well. I would expect it to do a little bit better with a big engine and a light airframe. Maybe it's because I have a bunch of bombs on it. But I was a little disappointed in this plane. I heard really good things about its maneuverability in real life, but in game it turns kind of like the BTD, which is, if you guys haven't flown the BTD, it's really not good. It turns about like a Focke-Wulf 190, if that's a better reference point. And it rolls pretty slow. It's got a pretty good bomb load if you manage to get it fully upgraded. It's able to carry up to about just under 900 pounds of either a torpedo or a bomb. And it's got dive brakes, so it's a torpedo bomber slash dive bomber. And it is a carrier-borne fighter, so I'm pretty sure it should have a hook. That's what it was intended for in real life, at least. So it should be able to be landed safely on a carrier map in Warthlander. You can see there, that's the dive brakes. Kind of looks like landing flaps. So, yep, that's the B7A2. Alright, so here we have the BF-109F1. It looks just like a BF-109F, except with a different paint scheme. In performance and handling wise, it reminded me of the BF-109F4, but I didn't go too deep into testing it. I didn't test every single plane in depth like I did certain planes. But one thing I did notice is that you see that 20mm cannon is not an MG151, it is an MGFF. Not as good of a cannon as the MG151. Slower bullet velocity, less damage, so it's not as good. It doesn't pack as much of a punch as the F4. And there you go. I couldn't show you the BF-109F2, unfortunately, because with the new upgrade system I would have had to have gold to unlock it on the spot, unless I wanted to play on the dev server to unlock it, which I didn't feel like doing. So the most I can get you is a screenshot of the plane. And there it is, the BF-109F2. It's got a pretty sweet paint scheme. Alright, next up we have the new Lavochkin. This is a very cool airplane. It's pretty similar to the LA-7, except I believe this one has an all-metal airframe. It has that sweet mirror too. And it also has new redesigned laminar flow wings. In regards to its handling performance, I'd say it handles pretty similar to a regular LA-7, except one thing is off about this plane to me is its speed. I took it out and just took it at sea level and just saw how fast I could get to, and it was pretty disappointing. I was barely getting over 500 kilometers per hour. And if you want to compare that to the LA-7 gets around 610 at sea level. This plane, if anything, should just be faster than the LA-7, and the fact that it's that significantly slower I think is probably a bug with the dev server. Either that or the flight model is just completely off. But one thing I was a fan of with this new Lavochkin was the armament. You can see that there is 4 nose-mounted 23mm cannons. To give you an idea of how much that is, those are the same cannons that are on the IL-2 that are used to crack light tanks and such. Next up we have the Yak-9U. This is another Yak. It's looks like the same cockpit as the other Yaks. Except this Yak is distinguished by one thing. It's amazing performance. This Yak is actually really fast. It's very maneuverable. And I really like it in the dev server so far. And if you want some comparisons, I'd compare the roll rate of this Yak to the Yak-3, compare the turn rate to the Yak-9T, and compare the speed at low altitudes to the Yak-9P. It's a very good plane, and I highly recommend it. We also have the Yak-9 UT, which is basically the same plane, but with different armament. It has 2 20mm cannons and 1 23mm cannon mounted in the nose. That 23mm cannon can be replaced with either a 37mm cannon or a 47mm cannon, because this is the anti-tank variant of the Yak-9U. Alright, next up we have this is actually a German plane, but it's in the Russian tech tree. This is the Russian captured Focke 90 D9. This is a pretty sweet plane, and it seems to have the same flight model though as the Focke 90 D12. Don't quote me on that, but it seems pretty similar. I test flew the D12, which by the way has a new flight model. It climbs much better now. It can sustain a 20-degree climb at low altitudes at about 300 kph. It's just very good. And so it should actually be a competitor now. It's not as much of a brick as it used to be. And because this plane has seemingly the same flight model as the D12, it should be just as much of a competitor. The only thing that differs is the armament, which is still very good. It's 2 machine guns and 2 cannons, 2 20mm cannons. I'm not positive whether the machine guns are 7.6 or 13mm yet. I forgot to check that. But I can tell you that the plane does perform nice, and I think you Focke lovers will actually be pretty happy with this plane. I almost forgot about the new Duck. This one has the biggest boom boom cannon in War Thunder. At the moment, 75mm of fun. This thing can crack pillboxes, it's so big. I can tell you right now this thing is going to be a barrel of fun once Ground Forces comes out. You can troll tanks all day with this cannon. Actually, it might even be fun now just to troll planes with it, if you manage to hit someone with it. It has a ton of recoil though. I wouldn't recommend firing this cannon at too low of speeds, or else you might, or actually don't even fire it close to the ground, because it has such high recoil that the plane actually tips over forward, so you might hit a tree or something. And speaking of unnecessarily big guns, the new Tempest 5 that we have sports 2 47mm cannons, and they do that. A lot of recoil, a lot of fun. We also have a few new Zeros, including the A6M3 Mod 22 KO that I mentioned earlier, and the A6M5 Otsu, which is the plane that I'm flying right now. This plane, instead of having 2 7.6 machine guns, it has 1 7.6 machine gun and 1 50 cal. It has 250 cannon shells, just like the A6M5 KO. And in real life, this little Zero sported an automatic fire extinguisher, so you guys that complain about Zeros putting out fires instantly, actually can't really complain about that with this plane. And here we have the Ki-84. I was actually pretty excited about this plane. It is a Japanese plane, but this one's actually fast. It maneuvers very well, and it climbs pretty well. So the one complaint I have about this plane is that it just doesn't get to the speeds that it should. At sea level, I was testing it, and it barely got over 500 kilometers per hour, which, like the Yak, or the LA-9, it should get much faster than that. This plane at least should be going 530 kilometers per hour at sea level, and at least in the dev server when I tested it, it simply wasn't doing that. But other than that, this plane is actually pretty fun to fly, and it's pretty good. Alright, last but not least, the plane that I was personally looking forward to the most, the Tempest 2. This plane is quite the speed demon, and I will show you a little bit of testing I did earlier, and I think you'll be impressed. Yes, you are not misreading that. The plane is indeed going 670 kilometers per hour at sea level. This is its actual max speed. I kept it here for a while. It's actually closer to 669, but it was kind of bouncing back and forth before I started recording. So this plane is quite easily the best plane in the game at sea level, and will outrun absolutely every prop in the game. Alright, that should be all for this episode. I should have another one coming tomorrow regarding flight models, and a lot has changed besides just new planes on the dev server, and I will try to address some of that tomorrow. I will see you in that episode.